boys and girls. I'm Miss McAloon. I teach 5th grade at Inskip Elementary, and I'm so excited that you've decided to join me today. This is our second week of ELA videos. So today we're going to be reading, talking about, and writing about text, and we're going to especially emphasize that writing part today. If you were able to join us last week, then you're going to see that we're using the same text we used last week. If you were not able, don't worry, because we're going to review everything. And if you were able to join us, and then this is a great opportunity because we know that good readers reread quality texts. This is a good opportunity for you to go back, see what you can get out of the text that you didn't get from it last week. Okay, so we're going to be using our Sleuth Text today. You might have seen it in your classroom and used it at some point in the year. And we're going to be learning some great things about adapting. We're going to be talking about recycling and natural resources. And we're going to be talking about creating an opinion writing piece. So let's get started. All right. There we go. So, but if you have some ability to do some writing today, that would be great. All right. So troubleshooting tips, and this might mostly be for parents, but if you're by yourself working, then hopefully you can use these tips as well. Closed captions would be helpful if you're having trouble hearing me, because then you could see the words on the screen. So if you have that ability, you might want to turn closed captions on. You might want to, if you're having trouble understanding, slow the playback speed of the video. And then once you've listened to it once at a slower speed, you can speed it back up and play it again. You might want to break the video into short clips so that you can repeat small pieces as necessary. I recommend if you have someone in your home that you can watch with, that would be great, because that way you can talk as the video's going on. You can share your own ideas with them. Hopefully though, if you're not able to work with someone else, you're able to follow along by yourself. Another idea is to read the text first. If you haven't read the text already, then you might want to pause. Read the text first so that you can get an idea of what are the difficult vocabulary here, what's the main idea of the text. That'll help us as we get into our writing today. And a good strategy after the video is to summarize the information that we cover. So if you have the ability to write down a quick bulleted summary, or you might want to share with someone in your home, or just say it out loud. Summarizing is a great tool that we use as readers frequently. It helps us to remember and retain important information. As always, feel free, if you have the ability, to pause as we go. I'm going to provide enough wait time, but you might need some extra time, or you might have a question, need to take a little longer, and that's absolutely okay. All right, so as we get into our sleuth text, good readers are always kind of acting like detectives, because we're not trying to look for clues to solve a real life mystery, but we're looking for clues to help us understand the text. And this sleuth text is awesome because all of the texts included in this text are related to mysteries, and they require us to be really close and attentive readers so that we can get the most out of the text that we read. I'm going to read to you the introduction of our sleuth book as a refresher of what we're doing as readers today. All right, from the Super Sleuths, mysteries. Dear Junior Sleuth Hound, mysteries are all around. There could be a mystery on your playground. There could be a mystery in a faraway land. There could be mysteries between the pages of this book. So what do you do to solve a mystery? Become a sleuth hound. Look for clues. Ask interesting questions. Then put all the pieces together and prove your answers. This book gives you a chance to practice skills that sleuths use. As you read this book, use the Super Sleuth steps to find answers to some really big questions. Good luck! All right, so we are going to be reading and looking for answers to some interesting questions, like I said, about adaptation and about solving problems today. As we are doing that, we're going to be looking for clues like sleuths do. You might see clues about vocabulary, clues about problems that can be solved, clues about adapting. We are also going to be asking questions. You can ask questions out loud. You can ask them if you have somebody watching with you, or you can ask them in your head. Maybe write them down too. We are going to be really focusing on making our case today. So having an opinion and then proving it, supporting it with details. Okay, I want you all to think back to Unit 4 in Reading Street. Unit 4 was all about adapting. So we read Westlandia, where Wesley was a person who adapted to a difficult situation. And we read about exploding ants, which helped us remember that animals adapt as well. So animals might adapt or change their behavior to help them survive. They might, over time, develop physical adaptations that help them survive. So we're reading today about a person who adapts to solve a big problem in our environment, in our world, and then has to continue to adapting to solve his own individual problems or problems that are unique to him. And remember that as we're doing that, we're using these sleuth tips the whole time. Okay, you guys ready to get into the text? All right, now if you were with us last week, we talked about the title, A Green Island. I want you to think, using those text features, what is the meaning of that title, A Green Island? Really be a sleuth here and look closely. So do we see an island? Yeah, we do, right? And there is some green on that island, but the other photographs aren't really about like green bushes. There's plastic bottles and aluminum cans and stacks of paper. And we talked about how green can mean like conserving, like trying to preserve our natural resources. And that's what this refers to in this text. We're going to read about Rishi Soa. And remember, his name it's from a different culture, so I might not be pronouncing it correctly, but I'm going to use Rishi Soa. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. We're going to read about this real life person who created and designed a solution. He created a whole island that was meant to help us with conservation. So I'm going to read you the introduction paragraph so that you can get kind of a refresher, an idea about what is this conservation problem here. I would love for you to follow along with me, either out loud or in your head. Ready? A green island? Recycling is nothing new. People have found ways to make something new from something old for thousands of years. In today's world, we hear a lot about helping the environment and conserving natural resources. Many people are adapting their lifestyles in an effort to make the planet a good place to live in the future. Recycling cans, paper, and plastic bottles and bags helps to reduce the amount of trash that ends up in landfills. So the big issue here that we all are facing is the idea of conserving natural resources. The author references some adaptations that people make in order to conserve. Think about ways that you have adapted in your life to conserve natural resources. So some people have recycling cans or recycling dumpsters at their home. Some of us recycle at school. You might be thinking about conserving energy in your home, like turning off lights when you're not using them, saving water, turning off water in between, like while you're brushing your teeth. And the idea of adapting is especially important to us right now because we're adapting as teachers and as learners, right? Normally, I wouldn't be teaching from my couch. I would be teaching from in my classroom. And as we are practicing adapting to learning and adapting to staying safe and staying in, it can be really important to think about examples of how we have already adapted as a community, like with recycling, and how individuals have adapted in really creative ways. So that's what we're going to do right now. You're going to learn about Rishi Soa and ways that he has adapted to solve the problem of having a lot of unused waste materials. I want you to read paragraph 2 on your own. Remember, if you've already read this text, this is a great time for you to try to find details and really sleuth out information that you didn't find the first time. Okay, go ahead and read for me. So SOA's great idea was able to take 250,000 plastic bottles and get them to be used for a purpose, for something useful, rather than just end up in landfills. However, he encountered a unique problem to his solution. The Spiral Island was actually destroyed from a hurricane. And it's important to remember that when we adapt, when we come up with solutions, sometimes we have to continue adapting and adapt those solutions. So he had a really great idea for conserving and for repurposing recycled products, but he's going to have to make changes so that his idea is successful again. That's what you're going to read about in paragraph 3. What does SOA do in response, and how does he adapt? Go ahead and read. So I love that the author included the story of Spiral Island 1 and Spiral Island 2, because it's important for us to remember perseverance. And SOA responded by creating another island and taking steps to make this island more secure. What are some of those changes that SOA made? So mangroves are unique because they have underwater root systems, which would definitely help to stabilize the island, and they help encourage other plant life to grow on the island, making the island even stronger. In the next paragraph, we're going to read about, remember, Soa is a real life person. This is a true story. So we're going to read about what's happening with Soa and his island project now. Go ahead and read paragraph 4. So this part of the story really reminds me of Westlandia, and how Wesley started by growing plants, and then maybe he was eating them, and then by the end he was using his world that he created with by creating all kinds of new tools and games and equipment. So Soa's kind of doing the same thing. First, he was just creating an island, and now that the island is successful and stable, he's developing. He's creating a washing machine, he's creating a 2-story house, and I thought it was really cool to see that he's continuing to develop with his idea. All right, the last paragraph is really important, and it's going to be a great jumping off point for our writing that we're going to do today. So I want you reading to think about what are some of the problems that Soa might encounter with his island? What are some of the problems that he might encounter? Go ahead. All right, so did you notice any problems mentioned in the text? So the same thing that happened to Spiral Island 1, another hurricane could threaten Spiral Island 2. Secondly, there's always the chance, even though SOA is keeping the recycled plastic bottles out of landfills, there's always the chance that if this material were to wear away, that it would end up polluting the ocean or the beaches nearby. So I like that the author is ending by kind of encouraging us to think of questions about how might we come up with, or how might SOA come up with solutions to some of these problems. Now, we introduced last week 3 different ideas for ways that you could really solidify and deepen your understanding of this text. We're going to focus today on the make your case assignment. We're going to talk about the assignment, then we're going to look at an exemplar and do some activities with that sample assignment, and then you guys are going to have the opportunity to complete the assignment if you haven't done it yet, or extend on the assignment if you've already done it. All right, so I'm going to read you the assignment. Make your case. Should the U.S. government pass a national law to require individuals and businesses to recycle plastic? List 2 convincing reasons to explain and support your viewpoint. Okay, so we're being asked by the author to come up with an opinion. Either yes, the U.S. government should pass a national law, or no, the U.S. government should not pass a national law. Anytime I'm doing opinion writing, whether it's like a quick write like we're going to be doing, or whether it's a longer process write, I'm thinking about our writing rubric. So even though we're not being graded specifically exactly on this rubric, we're still going to think about all of these components. Focus and organization. Do I have a clear focus at the beginning of my writing? And is there some kind of structure that helps the reader follow my ideas throughout the text? Development. In this case, we're not going to have like big body paragraphs, but the prompt tells us that we need 2 convincing reasons that explain our viewpoint. So we're definitely going to want to make sure we have those reasons and that they support our view. With language, we want to make sure that we're using precise language, not just copying every word from the text, but there's some really good vocabulary in this text that we read that we want to incorporate into our writing. Can you think of any words from the text that you might want to use in your writing? So definitely you're going to want to talk about recycling. You might talk about natural resources or conservation. You might talk about landfills in your writing. So we're using specific vocabulary that helps us demonstrate our understanding of the topic at hand. We're also going to make sure that we have varied transitional words and phrases, because we don't want to be repeating the same words over and over, no matter what kind of writing we're doing. And conventions. So we always want to attend to capitalization, punctuation, our spelling. Remember, if you're using a word that's in the text, go back in the text and look to see how it's spelled. If you're unsure of a word you want to use and its spelling, you could always ask someone in your home. You could do your best to use all of your phonics knowledge to sound it out, or you could use a dictionary or an online version of a dictionary to check your spelling. Okay, so now we're going to look at an exemplar sample answer to this question. As we're reading it the first time, I want you really thinking about the 4 components that we just talked about. So focus and organization, development, language, and conventions. I'm going to read it to you. If you have your packet from this week, the text, this exemplar, is included in your packet, so you might want to get that out. After reading A Green Island, it is clear the U.S. government should pass a law to require the public and businesses to recycle plastic. Because of the enormous volume of trash produced by the American public, landfills across the country are filled with waste. If the government required plastic recycling, plastic could be reused instead of crowding these landfills. Rishi Soa had a unique and creative idea to use plastic waste to create 2 islands. Unfortunately, After the first island was destroyed, the waste polluted the beaches. Even so, a great idea cannot prevent waste plastic from polluting the environment. Therefore, recycling is the only safe option for reducing plastic waste. Okay, so if we go back to thinking about each of these components of good writing, especially opinion writing, is there a clear focus from the beginning? Can you tell what the author's opinion is? Yeah, so right at the beginning, it is clear the US government should pass a law to require the public and businesses to recycle plastic. In terms of organization, we're thinking about, are those reasons included and are the reasons supported? Are they organized? Okay. In terms of development, we're going to think about those two reasons included. Take a minute, see if you can find those two reasons. You might even want to underline or label the reasons with an R. So the first reason listed is that landfills across the country are filled with waste. Then the author goes on to explain why this law would connect to the idea of landfills, that if we recycled more, maybe there would be less material in landfills. And the second reason, let's see. Good. So the author here includes the idea that even SOA's idea of repurposing recycled objects and items was not perfect because it still led to pollution. So the author is giving another reason and explaining. I especially love the way the author is using, really developing from the text, information that came from the text to demonstrate an understanding of the story article that we read. Okay, so now we're going to think about some specific questions and activities. If you are with someone, definitely do this along with them. Have them check your work and your answers. If you're on your own, though, we're going to walk through them together. So we've talked about our topic sentence, but I want you to think about a concluding sentence. I know that authors will wrap up their ideas and their opinion by restating so that the reader is really clear where the author stands. See if you can find a concluding statement in this exemplar. Great. So recycling is the only safe option for reducing plastic waste. Really sums up and says, using different language, but the same idea, that the government should pass a law requiring recycling. Okay. We definitely talked about the author's opinion because that was connected in the topic sentence. And we've already gone through and looked at those reasons. One about landfills and one about SOA's first island being destroyed. All right, now we're going to do some sentence composition work. So it might have been a while since you've talked or thought about phrases and clauses. I'm going to give a brief reminder. A phrase is a group of related words, whereas a clause is a group of related words that includes a subject and a predicate, or a who and a do. So when we're thinking about clauses, we're really looking to see, does this group of words have a subject and a predicate? Now, dependent and independent clauses are different because dependent clauses depend on or have to be connected with another clause to make a complete sentence. They don't make sense on their own. Independent clauses do, and they can stand on their own as a sentence. So this is going to be a good challenge for you guys. I want you to look back in the exemplar, see if you can find a dependent clause, label it with a D. See if you can find an independent clause that can stand alone and label it with an I. So there are several different dependent and independent clauses here. I'm going to look just at one sentence for my examples, but if you found other dependent and independent clauses, I'm not saying that you're wrong or that they're not in there. Maybe just check with somebody else in your household, double check yourself to make sure that you found them. So in this sentence, after the first island was destroyed is a dependent clause. The first island is our subject and it was destroyed is our predicate. But I can't have this stand on its own. After the first island was destroyed is not a complete sentence. It doesn't make sense. However, the waste polluted the beaches is an independent clause. The waste is our subject and polluted the beaches is our predicate. I could have written that as a standalone sentence. The waste polluted the beaches, and it would still be correct. So that's our independent clause and dependent clause. Isn't it fun to practice sentence composition? It really helps us as writers, though, and it helps us make sure that we're developing our language skills and our communication skills. All right, now I'm going to have you do a little bit of word composition practice. I want you thinking about finding a possessive noun and a proper noun. So as a reminder, possession, like ownership. How do we show that a noun has or owns something? And a proper noun means that it's a specific name of a person, place, or thing. How do we show that when things have particular names? Go back in the text, find a possessive noun and a proper noun. So we can actually use the same word for both of these examples. So was apostrophe S showing possession, that he has something. And what is it that he has? That's right, a great idea. And SOA is a specific name. It's got a capital letter, so it's a proper noun as well as a possessive noun. There are other proper nouns in this text too. All right, finally, this is an assignment for those of you who have already written one response to the make your case prompt, or for those of you who haven't but want to try something a little bit of a challenge. So the exemplar text is written by someone or written from the position that the government should pass a law requiring the public to recycle plastic. I want you to write a response to this author contradicting her opinion and taking the opposite stance. Now, you might already agree with the author. You might disagree with the author of this exemplar. I want you guys to practice and really challenge yourself by thinking, well, if I did think that it was a bad idea to have a law requiring recycling, what reasons might I give? Are there any pieces of evidence in the text that I could use for reasons for why we should not have a law? And this could be challenging, but it's a really good way for you to practice developing your point of view skills and your skills writing an opinion piece. Okay, so we've looked at reviewing our text. We have talked about, oh, sorry about that. We've reviewed our whole text. We've looked at one specific question and how we could possibly answer that question. We've also kind of analyzed this writing, so I'd encourage you to go back to your own writing after you've written your response to the make your case assignment and kind of analyze it in the same way that we analyzed the exemplar. Once you've done that, I think it would be a great idea to write an opinion from the opposite stance so that you're really practicing developing reasons that make sense with opinions. Now, I want to end by talking about some extension ideas, ways that you might continue your learning centered around this topic of adaptation and conservation and recycling. Last week, if you listened to the video, I gave you the idea to design your own structure made of recycled materials. Just like, so SOA created an island, maybe you might want to make something completely different. Thanks again. This is Miss McAloon from Inskip Elementary. On behalf of all your teachers, we miss you, we love you, and we want you to stay safe. Thanks.